start with America's. The White House has confirmed that U.S. President Donald Trump will be meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping on Seoul on Thursday tomorrow, with 30th October at 11 a.m. local time. A high-stakes encounter between the world's two largest economies are on the horizon as the leaders struggle to end a grinding trade war. The sit-down comes after months of tit-for-tat escalation, Washington expanding export controls and threatening 100% tariffs on Chinese goods from November 1st, Beijing tightening rare earth curbs and deepening energy ties with Russia. Both sides signaled modest progress during recent talks in Malaysia, laying the groundwork for what will be the first in-person meeting between Trump and Xi since 2019. Officials say the November 10th deadline for a truce is looming without a deal. Tariff pressure could surge again. What began as a narrow dispute over fentanyl flows has now widened into a broad geopolitical clash, from technology and industrial dominance to food security and the rules of global trade. Allies and markets are watching closely. Now for this discussion, we welcome David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how do you think what will be Trump's negotiation tactic or style, and how do you think it could influence the tomorrow's trade truce with China?
Well, in these trade talks, you have on one side a very highly educated and dedicated to long-term results leader in China with a whole team of very highly educated diplomats around him. On the other side, you have Donald Trump, a very poorly educated man who does not understand economics, even though he has a degree in it, and who does not understand very much about negotiating. Donald, has sold much of the public on he's a great negotiator, having negotiated with Donald many times over the last 37 years. He's a terrible negotiator. But each of the parties here has things that they need. The U.S. needs neodymium and other rare earth metals that have been processed like dysprosium. Neodymium was an American technology, but the George W. Bush presidency allowed the Chinese military, using fronts on Wall Street, to acquire that technology and remove it from the United States, something I wrote about at the time that it happened. Trump needs to get the Chinese to buy American soybeans. We sold $13 billion last year. So far this year, zero. He's in the weaker position because China has now acquired soybeans from Brazil, Argentina, and Australia. Trump also wants to limit the high-powered new generation computer chips that China wants. So that's the most important bargaining point he has to get things from Donald Trump. Over time, however, you can expect the Chinese will develop their own super advanced computer chips.
And what role does Trump's past approach, as you've also mentioned to tariffs and export controls, play in shaping China's strategy? Do you think they also have a game plan?
Well, yes, China takes a very long-range perspective on things. Their general view is we're here forever. So they think long-term. If you look at the building of the Three Gorges Dam the British proposed back in the mid-1960s, because of that, if sea levels rise and Shanghai disappears beneath the waves, China just moves inland. They can bring ocean-going ships 1,500 miles into their interior, something the U.S. cannot do. And so China is looking at a long game. Donald Trump is looking at a short game for quick approvals because the American economy has slowed down, and we may find out within the next few months is actually going in reverse at the moment.
And how do you think, how might Trump leverage his personal relationship with Xi Jinping, even though we only know they have had few conversations and last time they met was in 2019. Do you think he would use this for a breakthrough in tomorrow's talks, and what ways could he use this meeting to reinforce his image as a deal maker?
Well, Donald likes to promote the idea that he has these personal relationships with people, and yet if you look at what happens after his meetings with them, whether it's dictator Kim Jong-un or Putin or Xi, he actually doesn't end up with anything except some nice words. They continue to engage in the behavior that they think will best advance their countries. Trump has a very hard time understanding this because his career before he was president was one of either out negotiating someone because he had information about them they didn't know, or they had a vulnerability point, sometimes a personal vulnerability that he could exploit. And he doesn't have those things in dealing with President Xi. So my expectation is that whatever you want to regard as their personal relationship is really sort of irrelevant. China has long-term goals. They're going to stick to those. They don't need the U.S. as much as the U.S. needs China. Now, in time, the U.S. can recover from some of the problems it faces. For example, neodymium refining technology can be redeveloped in the U.S., and you'll probably see that happen over time. But in the short run, watch how the Chinese have behaved. They're building stronger trade ties in the Indo-Pacific region, and when Japan detained a Chinese fishing vessel. That's all they did was detain a Chinese fishing vessel. China cut off rare earths minerals to Japan, whose high-tech manufacturing really desperately needed them. So China has demonstrated both resolve and patience. Those are two things Trump just doesn't have given the nature of who he is.
Thank you very much, David K. Johnston, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well.